Okay, recording it started.
So we should get started. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Esposito, a college counselor from the Dawson School. On behalf of the Rocky Mountain College Night Planning Committee from Aspen High School, Colorado Academy, Dawson, Fountain Valley School, Kent Denver, Peak to Peak Charter School, and the Colorado Springs School, I want to welcome you to the panel session, Navigating the Process for First Generation to College Students. Tonight, we are thrilled to have with us Allison Duke from Dartmouth, Lee Hoffman from Davidson, Jessica DeSantis from Lehigh, and Lorenzo Gamboa from Santa Clara to offer their expertise on this topic. Please feel free to add your questions to the Q&A section. Near the end of the session, I will add a survey link to the chat so you can give us your anonymous feedback on the session to help us improve future programs. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Lorenzo, who will be moderating the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. This is Lorenzo Gamboa. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Santa Clara University. So it's an honor and a privilege to be here with you guys this evening. But as mentioned, I'm joined by many other colleagues. Wonderful knowledge here tonight. So please utilize the chat function and let us know how we can be a best support and resource to you. We're each going to give you a brief little introduction about who we are and then jump into some questions and then hopefully answer more and more stuff from you. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Lorenzo. I am a first-generation college graduate myself. Colorado native who ended up going out of state to attend Santa Clara University. And now I'm still working there. So lots to do and lots of opportunities coming your way. I'll turn it over to Jessica to introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica DeSantis, Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Lehigh University, also a Lehigh alum. I am not officially first gen, and I think at some point tonight we'll discuss that definition, though I think I relate in many ways to first generation students. Even as the youngest of three sisters, I definitely experienced the challenge of navigating college. So happy to share all that I've learned during my 16 years in admissions.
Thank you, Jessica. Now we'll turn it over to Allison.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Allie Duke, and I'm tuning in here tonight from Hanover, New Hampshire. This is my 4th year working at Dartmouth College. I myself am also not a first generation to college student, but am really excited to talk a little bit more about the process of applying to college tonight with you all. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Ellie. And now, last but not least, we'll be turning it over to our other colleague over at Davidson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Hoffman. I'm from Davidson College. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission, and I also direct our July Experience program. So working with high school students to come test out college during the summer. This is, as mentioned, my 6th year working in this field, about a decade before this, working as high school counselor with leadership development, all sorts of other things. I am not a first generation student for undergrad, but did experience first generation as a graduate student, which I think we don't think about a lot, but was eye-opening quite recently for me, navigating a similar but also widely different process. And so looking forward to this. And as Lorenzo said, the more that we can speak to your specific questions, the better. So please, please, please let us know what you want to know. And we're happy to share our knowledge from our work and our institutions.
Thank you, everyone. Now, as you've all been mentioning, there's many different definitions for what first generation looks like or is, and what is this experience that we're all touching on. So if you don't mind taking a stab at what is first generation on your campus looks like, and then giving us a different definition. Jessica.
Sure. At Lehigh, I would actually say there's probably technically multiple definitions. There is in the admissions process, kind of as we're reading an application and we see a student's family's background, how we might define first generation college bound. And so typically in our process, we are thinking kind of on a broader scope of who has knowledge about navigating college navigating the admissions process. And so we really do think broadly about that as we read. And so we're thinking about students whose parents maybe have only recently earned an associate's or a bachelor's degree, or students whose parents have only earned an associate's degree in the past, maybe even 20, 30 years ago, or those students whose parents do not have any degrees. And so we look at a wider range. In our coding system, it really becomes very detailed. It's really what we get from the Common Application or Coalition application. And it is very strictly anyone whose parents have not earned any kind of college degree. So you can see even in our own processing that there are varying ways to define it.
Thank you. Ellie.
Yeah, I would sort of piggyback on top of what Jessica has said there. I think we're looking both at students who have parents who did not receive a college degree at all, or students like Jessica mentioned who have received a college degree a little bit more recently, or perhaps are still attending a community college or have an associate's degree. So I do agree that there's a little bit more of sort of a broad definition there, but would echo much of what you said there, Jessica.
And Leah, you mentioned earlier about not being first generation yourself, but being first generation at the graduate level, which I think is really, really important to discuss. Do you mind letting us know a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I, came from a family where my parents went to four-year institutions, and I actually navigated my undergraduate pretty much on my own. I had parents that were like, yeah, we applied to one school and we got in and we went there. And so it was a whole different process for me to, I think, I had to go ask them for their credit card to submit the application fee, and that's all I got. And it worked out just fine. So when I went into graduate school, I was like, okay, I just have to fill out some applications and write an essay and apply to a couple places, and I'll probably get in somewhere and it'll be fine. And it was a wildly different process from things like trying to find funding is very different. I didn't realize that there was going to be limited funding at some of the institutions that I was looking at, both from the government, but also from the institution. That's one of the things that we'll probably touch on a little bit tonight. But going forward, it is so confusing to try and figure out all the terminology and things about what it costs to go to school. But the essays, there's interviews, there's just so many different things. And I didn't really know what questions to ask, right? I didn't know how to talk about research or how to do those things. So it was actually took me 2 tries. So the first year I applied to grad school, I didn't get in anywhere, and I had to go back to work for a year and try again. And so I think what I like to point out about first-gen students is, in some ways you can self-identify. Yes, there's a, technical flag that will go on your file if neither of your parents have attended or graduated from a four-year institution. But, depending on your parents' journeys or how long ago it was or those types of things, in some ways, if you're navigating this on your own, there's a lot of elements of this process that are going to be very similar for you as well.
I think it's really important to understand that being first, yes, it comes with a lot of fear, but also a lot of wonderful experiences and opportunities to, reshape and redefine what's going on. Question is, if we said our parents went to college, then we wouldn't be first generation. What if my siblings went to college before I did, or are concurrently? Am I first generation?
In our world, yes.
Really great question. Yeah. We really, so Davidson, that was a yes. At Lehigh, it's a yes as well, that you're still first gen. That's based upon parents' backgrounds or legal guardians' backgrounds. And Leah, certainly jump in and add to this, but and I'm glad I have the opportunity to kind of at least delve into this. The reason why this is a topic of conversation, the reason why we look at these things in the application process is because we understand that there are different concerns, different knowledge sets, different ways to navigate the admissions process, let alone college. And so that's why we consider this, is that we understand that people have a different understanding of how things work, what support services exist, so on and so on. And so we want to consider the family's background, no matter what that might be. I mean, I still, as I mentioned in my intro, I'm the youngest of 3, and here I am thinking, oh, I know how to go through the college process, right? My mom has a bachelor's degree from the State University in our hometown, so she had never really gone anywhere. She wasn't allowed to live on campus. My dad has an associate's degree, and here I am, the third in my family. I'm not first gen, technically. I applied to a school that didn't have the major that I wanted. And I had to write an essay on a major that I absolutely did not want. When I went into college, I, definitely found myself very lost. I didn't know where to turn, who could help me. How do I build a network? How do I get an internship? I had no idea about that part of navigating college. And so it's about understanding those perspectives and experiences and what that means you bring to the table. And that's why we look at those definitions of, the family that you come from, because even when you have siblings that go, that does not mean that you know everything about the process or that your parents will be able to support you in the process. So just tossing that out there.
Yeah, and I also like to talk to the, sometimes I think there's a little, even if you're first gen, if you're not first gen, this process is confusing and anxious. So don't assume because somebody's parents, if you have a friend, you have lots of friends whose parents, maybe went to college, have advanced degrees, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be just as confused at some points in this process too. So don't let that make you feel, oh, well, I'm, starting behind the 8 ball. Absolutely not. I think there's a lot of us that don't know a lot of things, and it's going to get a little bit more confusing each year as just don't watch too much news, because what you see on the news is not actually college admissions. Hopefully, if you'll learn anything from the sessions today, is that you have a lot of people right here that are willing to help walk you through this process to get to know you and your counselors at your schools. And so you are way more prepared than you actually think you are. And you all have some of the best resources in the state in the schools that you are at. So hopefully one of the things we can get to tonight is how to tap into some of those things. Yes, first generation is a thing, but then how do we go about utilizing that in the search and then helping you be prepared for when you get to college.
I think that's one of the big things that a lot of us feel sometimes when we're going through this, that we might be the only ones doing this or feeling confused, not realizing that actually over 50% of the student body in the United States applies being first generation students. Okay, so you're not alone. Always feel free to ask questions. But what does being first gen look like on each one of your individual campuses? I'll start out with Allie, please.
Yes, so sorry I cut out there for a minute, sort of the blessing and the curse of technology these days. So about 17% of our incoming first year class, who we actually just admitted tonight, are the first in their family to attend college. And we have a really robust support system here on campus for our first generation community, rooted in a program that we called FISEP, or the First Year Student Enrichment Program, that is open to any student who is the first in their family to attend college. And that includes a 4-week in the summer orientation program that brings students to the college campus early. You get to meet professors, you actually take a mock class, you learn about resources here on campus, you get paired with an upperclassman mentor who is also a first generation student. So we really sort of root in community and connecting you to resources and other first generation students and staff here on campus really early on in your experience.
Thank you, Ellie. Jessica, how does it look like at Lee?
Sure. So at Lehigh, we have a summer program as well to help students that identify as first generation, so they can come in and participate in the Lucy program. So starting to kind of understand what study skills are actually needed in college. Believe it or not, it may not be what gets you through high school, and start to introduce you to some of the resources at Lehigh. We have a student mentorship program that starts really first week of school as well, and we connect you with a career center advisor right away through our first generation services kind of center, student access and success office, which is amazing. That office also runs the Passport to Success program, so we pay for passports to ensure that one of barriers that we've seen historically for students going abroad and having some of these international experiences, but we're trying to remove that. So we have many different ways that we're trying to connect students who identify as first generation to the resources to help them navigate. But one of my favorite, honestly, is from the students themselves. They formed a first generation student group. And through that group, they realized that there were many more of them on campus than they thought. And the networking that comes of that, of, oh, this professor was really great and helped me with X, Y, and Z. And, oh, we should go see this person and things. So that group, I think, has been incredibly helpful. They also then formed themed housing. So they have a residential housing component as well, if you want to pursue that. So it's from the academic area to student life, we've kind of got it all covered. Trying to make sure that students know the resources that are available to them. And in some cases, partnering them with people, from day one to take advantage of them.
Thank you. Leah.
Yeah, and Davidson is a little bit different. We're a pretty small place. And I will say first gen programming is actually an area of growth for us. It's something that students have asked for. It's something that we have groups of students talking about. So they created kind of their own organizations. The onboarding process is a little bit different, where it's kind of wrapped into some of our other kind of opportunities, I should say, for students to come to campus and do things early. But what I will say that I think one of the things Davidson does really well is, because we're a small place and because we do a lot of things really intentionally, such as assigning holistic advisors to students before they even get to campus. So students have not only a professor, but other students that they're connected to before they get to campus. So when they get there, they are by no means a stranger. They have people to help them. Similar to, with the passports and study abroad, things like that, we have people in our study abroad office that are actually specifically working with students to take down a lot of those barriers, to be able to get them to be able to travel, to be able to be comfortable, even applying for those types of things. Our Career Center has fully shifted its model in the past couple of years to really, have an opportunity for students that come in and have absolutely no idea what they want to do, to have those people to come in and really kind of start from square one with them. So I think the benefit of a place like Davidson is it is so small that it is quite nearly impossible to get lost and not have people around. And I think one of my favorite things we've come up with in the past few years, we have a place or a center on campus called Lula Bells, and it serves a variety of purposes, from things like a food pantry if you need snacks and you have run out of your meal plan. It hosts a copy of every single textbook that's being used in the semester. There's clothes for interviews, there's those types of things, but they also host events for topics such as how to get a credit card. What does that mean to have credit? Things like that. What does it mean to basically all the adulting 101 type things? I think that's actually what the series is called. So it's, yes, some of those transition pieces to campus, but also the transition to being an independent adult within a college community and beyond. And the feedback from students has been that space has really been helpful for both first-gen students, but others that maybe don't know how to do that or didn't get that support at home to learn those skills before they got here.
Thank you for sharing that, because I also think it's really important that, just because you may or may not fit the category of being first generation doesn't mean that you're not going to fall into these categories of understanding how to get, certain things. The passport was a great example. The getting access to certain books is another example. I mean, learning how to navigate the system of what professors to take. All of these things are common questions for any student going through college. So make sure that you ask those type of things. What are some other emerging common themes or concerns that, first generations typically have? Anybody can take this one.
I think one of the things I see the most, and this is coming from my working with our students in the summer. So we have a very large population of first generation students that come to campus for summer experiences. And it is really powerful to watch the transition, but also an interesting thing to see. Most students are scared to talk to professors and ask for help. They don't realize that professors actually want you to come in and say, hey, I don't understand this, or, I'm having a really hard time with this assignment, or I got a really crap grade on this test and I don't know what to do about it. And they want you to come in and ask them about that. And it might feel scary for the first moment, but once you kind of get over that, it's really cool to see confidence grow in students. And those relationships are what then spark opportunities like study abroad and internships and opportunities to help research. And it's kind of gaining the confidence. It's one of those things, once you do it once, it's easier to do it again and do it other places. So I think that's a space that I see students who haven't had that opportunity in a smaller space, or somebody like me to say, hey, let's go walk over here and talk to this professor. You kind of have to learn how to do that, but it takes a little bit of vulnerability when you're on campus, and vulnerability and the courage to start those conversations. And that's true with pretty much anybody on campus that's there to support you. People that work on college campuses do it because they like students. You don't last in these jobs very long if you don't. And so, trusting that the people that are around you are there to help you.
I'll just add to that and say that I think, and it's ironic because probably most students, regardless of their background, most students have some sort of anxiety or fear as they're going into the college, experience and everything. But there are some people who have more what we call social capital than others. And what we mean by that is they kind of know, oh, I can go talk to my professors, or oh, there is this person on campus that I heard, my sibling had worked with, or that a friend from my hometown goes here and they said X, Y, and Z. When you feel like you have those kinds of connections, you kind of know what to do, to ask questions, that's part of that social capital, right? And so there are some students that absolutely, yes, have that, but many first generation students don't have that same social capital, and they don't realize that they actually can gain it by speaking up, by asking questions, by seeking help. I think it's really easy to let that fear of, am I the only one here that doesn't know what that word means? Am I the only one that doesn't know what they're talking about? To let that fear kind of stifle you. But I think once you start asking questions, you're going to find, one, there's going to be other first generation students, or even not, just those who don't also know those same words and phrases. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that either. They're gonna connect with you on that level. And so that's good networking, good support systems there. And then secondly, really, you're going to get the answers to what you need. You're going to find that confidence, as Leah was talking about. And so I think that's one of the big themes that I see among a lot of first generation students in particular, is feeling like they are the only ones, and therefore I can't speak up. I can't ask a question when I don't understand something, because I'll be singled out. I'm the only one here that wouldn't know that. So I'm not gonna embarrass myself, when the reality is there's probably many others that are in the same boat.
Yeah, to sort of both piggyback and consolidate what both of you said at Dartmouth, I hear a lot about our students about imposter syndrome and feeling like I'm not supposed to be here, or how did I get here? Or there's all of these students here who, like you said, Jessica, have more social capital somehow than I do. And it's tough because I can't tell you that that's not how you should feel. Whatever you feel is perfectly valid, and that is your lived experience. And it does sort of take time and gaining that confidence to grapple with that. But I always share, our offices don't make mistakes. You're here for a reason. We want your voice in our community here on our campus. Like, my dean clicked admit and signed your letter for a reason. So don't ever doubt that we did not want you here, would be my sort of takeaway there.
Thank you for adding that, Ellie. That's really, really important, is that, yes, regardless of who you are, there is always going to be a moment in time in college where you're going to say, wow, did they make a mistake? And I know all of us probably had that someday or another, but know that, the struggle is real, and we understand that. And this is why, from the moment that we submit your application, we want to understand, where are you coming from? How can we really support your endeavor and your opportunity to become who you aspire to become? And it's no secret that, being first generation, it sometimes comes with a bigger struggle, not only social capital, but economic capital, meaning your parents may or may not be able to support you academically the way that they would want to. So what might be some advice that you each would want to give to a first-gen student? I know for myself, I came from that. I mean, my parents unfortunately didn't have the funding to send me. And the only advice I always give students is that you create that opportunity depending on what you aspire for. So your job, your responsibility is go to school, do the work, and get involved. And if you do that to the best of your abilities and highlight what you've able to do, schools will recognize that effort. But you go to school and don't study and don't, you just go through the motions to average it out, then yeah, this is when you start having to invest in your own education. So that's my personal advice. I'll turn it over to, we'll go with Leah on this one.
Yeah, so do you want the long answer or the short answer? This is one of those, it depends. But I think the cool part about college is there are thousands of us across the country, and lots of different types of institutions at different price points. And, there are students that it makes sense to live at home and attend community college for a couple of years, or if you're in a place where you can get dual credit and take some of those and save some funding so you don't have to budget for 4 years. To state institutions, different scholarships, grants, but I'm also looking at the screen and there's really great money at some of these schools or all of these schools on the screen that goes to support you as a student. So that is, I think, one of the things, if any takeaways, some great questions to start learning how to ask your admission officers at places you're interested in or looking at is what kind of funding is available. Because what I can tell you is, I know it is for Dartmouth. I'll be interested to hear. I'm not 100% sure on your all's funding, but we meet 100% of calculated need for every single student with a 10-hour week work study, and we fulfill the rest with grants and scholarships. So we do not package loans. You don't have to pay any of that back. So Davidson can actually be really affordable. And then you get here and you're living on campus and you get your work study and you get funding to study abroad. That's part of your tuition. You get funding, most of you, everything's paid for. A lot of research and all of that is funded or with professors. So we have students that it's actually kind of a running joke is let's see what we can get Davidson to pay for, that they come up with all sorts of ideas and there's money there to be had for our students to get an education, to get career experiences, to get an internship, to do all those pieces. And there's lots of schools like that in different rates. And we can go into different financial aid pieces and net price calculators and all that stuff, but that's a really important, learn how to ask those questions of institutions because you can really find some places that are gonna make your experience super, super rich, whether or not your family personally has the funds to be able to give those to you. We had a lot of students that send their tuition leftovers or their, some of their grants back to their families because their families need the food or the money more than they do. And that's not uncommon for a lot of students.
Thank you. Ellie.
Yeah, and I think that's a great piece of advice, Lee. I would totally second you there. I'm actually going to steal a piece of advice from one of our bloggers, Griselda, who you can go online and check out her blog. She is a first-gen student here at Dartmouth, and her sort of top piece of advice, which I would echo, is don't underestimate yourself. Don't think, I'm worried that I'm not going to get into Lehigh, so I'm not going to apply at all. Don't be afraid of that rejection. Don't do something half-heartedly because you don't want to get excited and you don't think it's going to come to fruition. I think we all always have those like thoughts and moments of doubt that creep into our head. But give yourself the opportunity when you get to one of our college campuses, perhaps give yourself the opportunity to go to that first coffee club meeting or try out for the rugby team. College is such a great period of exploration and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And you hate to sort of look back and go, gosh, I wish I'd done X or I wish I'd done Y. So I think that's the piece that I would leave you with.
Thank you. Jessica.
I'm just going to say on the financial front, know the requirements, what forms, what documents do you need to submit, know the deadlines. Far too often, students assume, oh, well, my state schools don't require these things, so there's nothing else, they just require the FAFSA, so that's all I'll do. Most privately funded institutions, so we might get some grants and things from the government, but we're largely funded through our own fundraising, the private institutions. We do require oftentimes other documents or other pieces of information. And so you want to make sure that you know what is required and you follow deadlines. This is not a world that you should wait until you hear if you're in or not to then apply for need-based aid. We have a ton of money. We all are able to give it out to help as many people as possible, but I can't fill those forms out for you. And so I don't know how many conversations I've had with students over the years about like, oh my gosh, the CSS profile, the taxes, like they were due 3 months ago. We emailed you every other week, like, you got to get them in. And the answer is what Allie was, referring to is this, well, I didn't think I was even going to get in. In fact, I had a student this year who for months, I was hearing from different people, he just doesn't think he's going to be admitted. He doesn't think he's going to be admitted. And I kept saying, he needs to submit the forms anyway. And when he came up in the admissions committee, everyone fell in love with the student. And here he is admitted without a financial aid package because he didn't submit his materials. So fortunately, in the past few days, he submitted everything. He's now packaged with financial aid, which he's really lucky because oftentimes we're going out with everything we've got. We don't have extra money just laying around. But it's all because he second guessed himself. So Allie's right, that can really hold you back. That can actually limit your opportunities when you second guess yourself in those ways. So just put yourself out there. I know it's really scary and really hard, but if you're going to apply to a school, look at that financial aid side and do what you can to be complete. This is, I think, a scary process for everyone. It's confusing for everyone. And you may have to do all those forms yourself. Some of you may not have parents that speak English. And so you're translating to them or trying to figure out, how they run their business and how to put that information in. And that's not easy. And we recognize that. But it is what you can do to help yourself get tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in many cases across your 4 years. So it is worth the investment of your time to do the research, to ask questions, and to submit the required forms on time.
And if you can take anything away from today, is just don't hesitate to ask questions. Also, do not underestimate yourself. Like, I cannot reiterate that more. Do not underestimate your ability to get into X school, okay? Also, don't limit yourself on the financial price tag of it. If you did your work and there's due diligence there, the money will come for you, okay? And then, as my colleagues are mentioning, do not miss the deadlines. Like, that's one of the most important aspects in just not only in college, but in your professional life that you're gonna have to meet to make sure that we can all get to, to that next level. So yeah, keep going and we can make it hopefully happen. There are oftentimes unfamiliar terms. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you to think about like some of these terms and how would you explain it to a first-gen felon? For example, the registrar office, the bursar's office, who's the dean of students? What does that mean for a first-gen felon? So
sure, I can kick it off. Registrar might be one of the first ones that you hear about because they are managing all of the course registrations. So you think about, let's step back for a minute out of your own situation of trying to pick classes. The registrar's office is really looking at, and the registrar, him or herself or themselves, looking at how many sections of different courses do we need to offer? So how many classes actually have to be taught for that specific course? How many professors are actually going to teach those classes? And so what days and times can they be offered? So a registrar or the registrar's office is looking at all of those elements to make sure that there are enough classes that students need or that they can actually access in order to take them and graduate on time. And so the registrar's office really looking at course scheduling. In some schools, you might find some advising out of that office, that area. It will vary a little bit school to school, I'm sure. Some of the bigger publics, you'll probably find a little bit more of advising perhaps in that kind of an area. But registrar, registration, you can kind of start to see some connections. So that might be a little shortcut.
thank you. Anybody want to take on, how do you explain dean of students and their role?
Sure, I'll go for it. Dean of Students is kind of like the cruise director, not really, but they are overseeing all the fun aspects of residential life with way more moving pieces than probably a cruise if you think about, and it's going to be different at different institutions on what offices technically fall underneath different departments. Davidson's a small place, so we have the Dean of Students that oversees a lot of different things and pretty much everything that happens on campus. But, those are the people you're going to go to when you're thinking about dorms. Where am I going to live? What is that experience going to be like? Do I need accommodations with my dorm, right? Those types of things. Social life on campus, clubs, organizations. We have Davidson's on the honor system, so we have an honor council, those types of pieces. So basically anything that's kind of your day-to-day residential eat, sleep activities outside of classes. Again, that's going to look a little bit different institution. That's kind of the cut and dry. One of the cool things, and I will say this is, if you're looking at a school homework for, wanting to know who those people are, just type in Dean of Students and that school into the website, and it'll take you to a page. You'll kind of see who those people are. In a small place, you'll probably get to know them. In a large place, you may never see them, but those are the people that are going to be kind of put you in that direction. So your residence life directors, all of those people work with Dean of Students. And honestly, those are some of the most powerful people, especially in the beginning of your college experience, the people that help give you that residential life. Your people that are on your hall on a day-to-day basis are going to have a huge impact on your experience from the very beginning.
And Allie, I'm going to give you, would you explain bursar office?
Yeah, so again, can perhaps vary a little bit from institution to institution. When you start with us, our team and sort of the financial aid team, we love giving away money. That's like our favorite thing to do. Like, please, like Lee said, please take our money. We want you to take it. But whether your family contribution is $70,000 a year or $70 a year, there does have to be an office on campus that sort of gets into the nitty gritty of actually collecting those funds. So that is what's going to sort of fall under that office. Anything having to do with student billing, student payment, you are going to get a bill for your college education every term, like any other bill in your life. So they sort of take care of that. They'll work with you on your loans or your loan collection. Here at Dartmouth, our team helps you manage sort of meal plan management, choosing that for the term, collecting the sort of necessary funds for that. If you are on a sort of payment plan for something, if you are studying abroad and your abroad program is more or less expensive than what it might be for you to be here on campus, like they basically deal with all of the money matters here on campus.
And I'm just going to interject to say we have just a few minutes left. So if we have any questions from our participants or attendees, that would be great. Feel free to, I think you can unmute, but you certainly can post them in the Q&A or chat.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Another quick thing that I wanted to ask is, especially it's on a lot of students' minds right now, is going test optional, and whether or not we will be, again, moving forward and what awaits us. If I have the opportunity to sit down for the exam, should I or should I not? And what does this look like on your campus?
I'm happy to jump in here to kick things off. I think that a lot of the time students hear test optional and they think it's like sort of like hint, hint, wink, wink, like if you can take the test, you really should. That is not what it is. Optional is not a different way to spell required. When we read your applications, are looking at the information that you do send us. We are not spending time wondering what that test score would have been had you taken that test. It means that if you, A, have not had the opportunity to take the test for whatever reason, or B, have taken the test and decided that you don't want to send us your score, that will not at all negatively impact your chances of being admitted to one of our colleges. I think we've seen this year, and my guess is we'll continue to see next year, folks really committed to this test optional policy. So I know we only have a minute or two left, so I'll leave it there.
That was perfect.
Yes, awesome.
Yep.
I know we are coming down to the end, so really big piece. I know we gave advice to the students already, but I want to ask you guys, what advice would you give first generation parents moving forward?
I'd probably go with the same that I would tell the students, ask questions. I mean, yeah, not everyone everywhere is lovely and nice and kind, but most people working at colleges and universities have some interest in helping the students. And we're there to answer the questions, to provide help and support. And so I am always happy to talk to parents when they have questions and explain things to them. So I think it's the same kind of advice, at least for my, I mean, there's many things that we could say, but I think that's one big one.
Yeah, don't let your fear, if there's any anxiety or fear of the fact that I didn't do this and, you know, I feel like I want to be able to help more, whatever, you being there to support your student as they're going through this process in the ways that you know how to support your student, your child, is everything that they need. It really, you know, doesn't matter as much as you think it does. From my experience working with students, they do a pretty dang good job of navigating this process. And, you know, you just being there to encourage them to be there on the rough days, to be there in, you know, the celebratory and the fun moments, that is going to be the most exponential help that you can have for your student.
Allie, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I would echo both of those sentiments. I know we're getting to the last minute or so, so I think Jessica and Lee said it well.
Yes, so thank you all. Yes, and if you can, if possible, just go walk campuses with your son or daughter. See the differences and partake in the experience as well.
Thank you so much to our panelists and our attendees for joining us. We're going to have a 10-minute break. The next session starts at 6:50. I've posted a link in the chat to go to the registration page if you need to still register for a second session. That page also has the links for the students only Q&A sessions with these reps and the other reps participating. That is going to be from 7:30 to 8. So thank you all so much.